Do you want to know how to get rich even during an inflation? Yep, thought you might. This video will show you how by taking a deep dive into valuable insights from world-renowned investor and billionaire Bill Ackman, so make sure to stick around until the end of the video. During a recent interview, he gave his thoughts about the economy, the persistence of high inflation, and how to protect money from its impacts. First, we will look at the current situation with inflation in the United States and Ackman's insights, but it's not all doom and gloom as Ackman provides optimism and tips on how to thrive even in a world of high inflation. During a rare interview, Bill Ackman affirmed his belief that inflation will remain high and expects interest rates to continue to rise. Inflation in the US reached 9.1% in June 2022, the highest level in over 40 years. The government shutdown, a data shutdown, which is a loss of access to data provided by government agencies that the Federal Reserve relies on to decide whether to adjust interest rates, and dependence on foreign sources for government bonds are signs that inflation is likely to worsen. The effects of the global pandemic still reverberate with disrupted supply chains and an increase in demand for goods and services causing higher prices for items such as used cars. Ackman's outlook on inflation is that rather than treating inflation as temporary, a mindset shift is required and an acceptance that inflation is a new normal and will continue to persist. Workers' bargaining power rises and strikes have become more common, with successful walkouts leading to substantial wage increases, and the green energy transition incurs even higher costs. The knock-on effect of high inflation is a continuing rise in interest rates, causing borrowing to become more expensive and therefore compounding the effects of inflation. Long-term interest rates will also be affected by the substantial deficit spending of the Federal Reserve. Now, turning our attention to the optimism expressed by Ackman, he essentially believes companies can do well with inflation at a rate of 3%. He sees inflation as an opportunity for businesses with pricing power, pointing to several examples of companies in his portfolio, including Universal Music, Google, and Hilton, which all have pricing power. This is a term which means how much a company can raise its prices without adversely impacting customer demand. Such companies are able to raise prices without losing customers. He believes it is important to own businesses with stable pricing power even if inflation remains high. According to Ackman, businesses which are asset-light and therefore not requiring expensive physical assets are better positioned to thrive during inflation than an asset-heavy business. This is because of the lower operating costs of asset-light businesses and no physical requirement for expensive physical assets, for example, the restaurant industry. Restaurants Brand International operates a franchise business model, meaning that it doesn't need to spend money on operating the location and doesn't have to own the real estate, equipment in the restaurant, or inventory. The asset-heavy industry, however, incurs substantial expenditure on purchasing and replacing physical assets, which means they are vulnerable to inflation. An example being the airline industry spending money on planes, which are depreciating assets. Airlines typically spend billions of dollars purchasing planes. This fact is illustrated by the fact that American Airlines had $40 billion of aircrafts at the end of 2022. So there we have it. To conclude, Ackman's strategy for getting rich during inflation involves investing in businesses with pricing power, favoring asset-light businesses. That's all for today's video. If you found this information helpful, don't forget to hit the like, share, and subscribe button for more insightful content.